Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk Introducing. We're here today on a very chaotic night for Derby. We're recording this just after it's been announced that Max Bird's gone, so heads all over the place at the minute. But we'll see how it goes. But thankfully, Derby did bring someone in, Ebou Adams, a holding midfielder or central midfielder. And I've got a guy with me today who knows all about him. Forest Green Rovers journalist Dylan Banks. How are you, Dylan?
I'm very good, thank you, mate.
Good man. Glad to hear it. And Derby fans need lifting a little bit at the minute. We've just lost arguably our best midfielder to Bristol City. He is coming back on loan, but it's still miserable all the same. So I just want to ask you, Ebou, I mean, he's clearly a good player. He wouldn't have been signed by Cardiff in the Championship. He played for Gambia at Africa Cup of Nations. Tell us all about him. What sort of player is he?
Ebou, straight away, energetic kind of player, non-stop. Very willing, 110% in his efforts. Always wants to improve people, and that's the kind of player you've got. A person who will give anything for whatever club he plays for, which is pretty good to have in your team.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. And I mean, could you give us an overview of sort of how he played for Forest Green? Because I've seen so many things on social media about how, him and Kane Wilson were kind of the stars in that side, or some of the stars in that side that got promotion from League Two. What sort of player was he and how did he perform?
Yeah, I mean, as well as Kane Wilson, both of them and that team. We'll talk about the team that went up because that team is just ridiculous all over. Ebou, midfielder, box to box, I would like to say, really, about Ebou. Very good attacking. Good, I want to say, he's very good when it comes to where to be on the pitch at the right times. Defensively, really good, solid, very physical player. And that's what really made our team that year, being the midfielders who we didn't have in that season, I don't think would be as good as we were.
Yeah, and I mean, every team needs that player, don't they, in the centre of midfield? And Derby fans have been crying out for a long time because we've got the likes of Conor Hourihane, we've got Max Bird kind of, in the centre of the park. And there's not a lot of physicality there. There's not a lot of battling. There's not a lot of fight. Is that what he'll bring to this Derby team?
For sure. Yeah, lot of fight. He's a 90-minute player. He's not going to be a person that's going to last 70 minutes. It'll be 90 minutes full power.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what you need. And you mentioned, how strong he is defensively. I was just looking at some of the stats, and that season you went up, he was right near the top for tackles won, which is weirdly rare for a midfielder that plays that sort of role. Is he that sort of player? Can he win balls in the centre of the park?
Anywhere on the pitch, really. Even aerial, the leap on him is quality. He's got the good package of what midfielder you need, really. As you see in that season, PFA Team of the Year as well. Over some quality players in that League Two season that year as well. Gambia International says it all.
It does. It really does. I mean, we look at the progression. I mean, who did you sign him from? Was it Ebbsfleet? Yeah, Ebbsfleet United. Yeah. I mean, I'm no disrespect to Ebbsfleet. They're nowhere near the football league, and you brought him in from there. He was a relative unknown. He was with you for a few years. How did he progress from the moment he came in to the moment he left?
Yeah, when he came in, we saw glimpses of what he was going to become. I know when he joined from Ebbsfleet, it's the first time he's going as a full-time athlete. I think he was working part-time as well, as alongside of being at Ebbsfleet as well. So it's a big change for him, and he got comfortable. He really did. He suited straight into the Forest Green style play. I mean, at the time we had Mark Cooper, who brought him in. He just slotted straight in that midfield. And over the time, Cooper really brought him on as a player. Then when Rob Edwards came in, he just came twice the man as he was.
Yeah, and I mean, when he left, how did you feel? Obviously, you mentioned before we started recording, he was one of your favourite Forest Green players ever. I mean, what were your thoughts when he went to Cardiff?
It was a bit of a dark, dull day in the life of Dylan Banks, really, on that day. As you will know as well, when one of your favourite players leaves, it's not going to be the best of feelings, and we kind of just felt like that puzzle that we built just got ripped apart.
Yeah, did you find it a little bit weird that you'd won promotion and he still left?
I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, as long as he was at Forest Green, he had a good stint. For big clubs like Cardiff's going to come knocking on your door, and you've had one of the best seasons of your career. You are going to go on and try and develop yourself even better at a higher division.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. Does make sense. And we sort of mentioned a positional role. I mean, you mentioned box-to-box midfielder. I've been looking at some of the stats, and it says he either plays in that holding midfield role or slightly ahead. Is he a sort of player that can sit, or is he one of those like a Kante type player that wants to get about, wants to win the ball, and wants to be on the front foot?
Yeah, he's everywhere in that midfield. He's exactly Kante-esque. Say his interceptions are quality when it comes to it. He can push the ball forward. He's not like one of them kind of players that will run with it and pass it wide. He will take him on and quite literally successfully get past and make and pass the ball into a good space. And so you will expect that as well. He's really good at pressing back when obviously the ball's in the opposition's hands. So all round, as I've said, it's packaged to have.
Yeah, it certainly sounds that way. And I think Derby fans will be excited hearing that because that's something we've really, really lacked. I mean, as I've said already, our midfield doesn't quite have the legs to tackle teams. Even when we bring in players that work harder, they're not necessarily as effective as they possibly could be. So it's been a while since we've had a player like that. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how he goes on. And one of the things I really want to ask is regarding a previous club, the finest moment. What is this finest moment in a Forest Green Rovers shirt?
There's been plenty for sure, but if I have to put it down to one, it would have had to been that last day at Mansfield. Obviously, we're going to that game joint first with Exeter. Needed to get a point to win, and obviously Ebou were 1-0 down at the time, but Ebou went past the defender, slightly right past the keeper. I think that was probably one of our highlights because that goal kept us in it. And as much as the next person as Josh March came on and did it, but when Ebou does it, it's special because we kind of knew that he was going to go because due to the quality he is. So it was nice to see him do something to push Forest Green to win a title.
Yeah, I can imagine. We've got a question from Callum who asks, do you think you'll be able to adapt to play in front of 30,000? Because we've had a couple of players this season that have come from clubs that don't necessarily get the same attendances, and they have struggled at times. I mean, even Sonny Bradley, who's coming from Luton, he struggled with the pressure from the crowd early on. Do you think he'll be able to handle that, or is it something that might get to him?
It really depends because obviously Cardiff's his first big club he's been at. Obviously, Forest Green average about 3,000 to 4,000. So going to a 30k, and obviously I don't know how much Cardiff averages, but I know their stadium's quite big. It depends if the fans are going to be behind the players, then it's going to push Ebou even further. He wants to be the fan favourite. He was the fan favourite at Forest Green. He did so much for the fans. So if he can win the fans over, he'll thrive off it. But if there's a hostile environment where if he loses the ball, you hear the groans and moans from the stands, then I don't know. It might knock him. I don't know. But it's one of them. You just don't know how people will do because obviously he's played for small clubs.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, we'll see it. We'll see it, won't we? But if he's played at the African Cup of Nations, he's an international footballer. You'd hope that he can handle crowds of that size. And one of the things you mentioned already is to do with the sort of person he is. Now, Derby have posted loads of stuff since he signed about how he's constantly smiling, how happy he seems to be. He came out and talked about, he's delighted to be at Derby. This feels like a real big move for him, and it's good from the fans to sort of hear that. What sort of guy is he? You've mentioned he's a fan favourite. Is he as genuine as you think?
Yeah. He did a lot for fans behind football. There's a family called the Hoffmans, and he visited quite a lot because their little in was a huge Ebou fan. So he went over to the house, surprised him with shirts, boots. As well, takes time for fans. If you ever see him outside the ground when he's coming in on a match day, he'll always take time for everybody. Even after the game, you'll see him do a lap of the ground and just clapping all the fans. He's that kind of man as well in the changing rooms. He is what you see on camera, that happy, bubbly man, very humble. And I think he's a good person to have in your changing room.
Well, that's good. That is exactly what you want to hear. I mean, one of the things Paul Warne always stresses is that when he brings a player in, he wants them to be a good influence in the changing room. And yeah, it certainly sounds like we've got one here. But one of the things you always have to ask, no player's perfect, especially at this level. Are there any aspects of his game that you think need to be developed?
I think confidence after being at Cardiff, it was such a big move for him at the time when you got a big club knocking on your door, and he's only made I think his 11 appearances for Cardiff in the space of since he left. So he needs to get back up to full steam. I don't know what he's been like at Cardiff, don't know what Cardiff fans thought of him in that 11 games, but I think it's getting him back to being in that first team environment. And I know injuries haven't been the best for him there at Cardiff, but I think it's just getting him up to rhythm again of playing first team football. And yeah, confidence really.
I'm going to say, I've just got it up in front of me. He's only started 3 games in the Championship this season, playing 306 minutes. So he's not had a lot of first team football. As you say, he had that horrible injury where he missed an entire season. He tore a pectoral muscle, which I don't know how you do that. He was probably doing too much on the bench or something like that. And yeah, it's a strange one, but he seems to be back. He seems to be fully fit. Obviously, went to the Africa Cup of Nations and started the first game. Won't talk about what happened in that game, but he started the first game. And yeah, he looks a good player. And as you say, if he can get that confidence back, he could be the sort of player that Derby really need. And that sort of leads me to our final question, Dylan, is what can we expect from him at Derby? And do you think that he'll succeed?
I hope he does succeed after how much positive I've been talking about him. As a man to man, if I speak to Ebou, I'd wish him the whole best, and I think he knows that after his conferences talking about Derby and how big of a move it is for him. I don't think he's going to let this one down. He's going to prove a point and be the fan favourite Derby, I'd hope. And as well, he's that kind of player, as I've said, he's going to give everything. He just wants 3 points. He wants a good performance. He wants a good performance for the whole team. So, yeah, I think he will really do really well at Derby. I think he will suit Derby quite a lot.
I do hope you're right. And one final question I've just thought of. You mentioned that he'll sort of help push the team forward. Is he one of those players that just is a leader? The second they step onto the pitch, they've got a voice and they help push the team on? Because I don't think Derby have too many of those.
I think Ebou can. It can be. And I think as well, if he wants to push Derby on for promotion this season, then I think he definitely will be that man who will scream out points in the game. And I generally do think he will be that kind of man to have a voice.
Yeah, well, I think all Derby fans will certainly be hoping that you're right. But Dylan, thank you very much for coming on and giving us some good insight. It's been really interesting to hear about it. It sounds very positive, which is good. I think Derby fans need a little bit of positivity at the minute. If people were going to go find you and the stuff that you do, where would they go?
Yeah, you can follow me on TikTok. That's Dylan Banks 42. It's mostly Forest Green content on there, and as well matchday content. As well, Twitter, Dylan FGR Banks. That's my main place. So yeah, that's the way you can find me.
Good stuff. Thank you, Dylan. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like, subscribe. We do this for every player that we sign. Get someone in that knows them a lot better than all of us do, and hopefully give us some vital insight. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, please do give us a rating. Really, really appreciate it. I had some really good ones recently, so it means a lot to us with the effort we put in. So yeah, thank you very much, Dylan. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and hopefully we'll see you soon.